The next morning, the kingdom gathered at the palace once more. The high priest stood before the crowd, his head bowed as he spoke. "The gods have spoken," he declared solemnly. "Etua is the queen, chosen not by tradition, but by the will of the gods themselves. All who stand against her stand against the divine." Etua stepped forward, her face serene yet stern. She looked out over the crowd, her eyes meeting those of each person present. I saw in her gaze a blend of compassion and authority, a strength that did not need to shout to be heard. "Today," she began, her voice carrying through the courtyard, "marks the beginning of a new era for our kingdom. I do not seek to erase our past or our traditions, but to build upon them in a way that brings unity, prosperity, and peace to all people of this land. I am queen not because of my birth, my beauty, or my status, but because the gods have chosen me to serve." The crowd listened in silence, the tension slowly easing as her words sank in. Efua stood among them, her head bowed in Dituat. She had been bested not by force, but by the undeniable will of the gods and the strength of Itua's spirit. As the high priest placed the crown upon Itua's head, a cheer rose from the people. It was not the loud, boisterous cheer of victory, but a sound of relief and acceptance. The kingdom had come through a storm, and at last, it had found its queen. Itua's reign marked the beginning of a new chapter in the history of Benin. Under her guidance, the kingdom prospered, the clans remained unified, and the land, once parched and barren, became fertile and abundant. Itua ruled with wisdom and compassion, always reminding the people that strength lay not in outward appearances, but in the heart. As for Efua, her fate took a turn so dire that it became a tragic tale of caution in the kingdom. Not long after Itua's ascension, a mysterious and deadly illness struck her down. It began subtly, as rough patches on her once beautiful skin, but soon it spread like wildfire, transforming into a disease far more terrible than leprosy. Her skin broke out in boils and sores that festered, darkened, and oozed a foul-smelling liquid that repulsed even the bravest healers of the land. It was as though her body was decaying from within, each mark a testament to the curse that had befallen her. The disease did not stop at her skin, it ravaged her limbs, leaving them stiff, twisted, and frail. Her beauty, once her pride and symbol of power, was taken from her in the most gruesome manner. Efua's face, formerly admired and envied, became a sight that filled those who saw her with pity and horror. Her eyes, once bright with ambition, turned hollow and sunken, surrounded by the marks of her affliction. People who had once followed her now turned away in disgust and fear, whispering that the gods had cursed her for her defiance and desecration of the sacred grove. Desperate, Efua sought help from every healer in the kingdom, but none dared to touch her. The illness was not one that could be cured by herbs or rituals. It was something more, something beyond the understanding of mortals. The disease drained her strength, and soon she found it impossible to live among the people she had once sought to lead. Shunned by society, Efua wandered the outskirts of the city, covering her disfigured face with a tattered cloak, hoping to find a place where she could hide her suffering. In time, the kingdom grew accustomed to her absence, and her name became a whisper on the lips of the people. Efua was no longer the powerful woman who challenged Itua's right to the throne. She became a figure of pity and a symbol of divine retribution. Forced to leave the city entirely, Efua fled into the dense forest on the kingdom's outskirts. Here, in the shadows of the towering trees and undergrowth, she found her refuge. The forest became her new home, though it offered little comfort. Villagers who ventured close to the forest would sometimes see her silhouette moving silently among the trees, wrapped in her dark cloak. Efua roamed the woods like a wraith, a shadow of her former self, She survived by foraging for roots, wild fruits, and leaves, her hands shaking as she dug through the earth. The once proud woman was reduced to a creature of the forest, living on scraps and enduring the elements without complaint. Rumors spread throughout the kingdom about Efuwa's presence in the woods. Some claimed to have seen her drinking from streams, her face concealed by the shadows of the forest. Others said that they heard her crying in the dead of night, her voice echoing through the trees like a mournful spirit. Over time, she became a ghost story, a figure used to frighten misbehaving children. Beware the forest, parents would say, for Efuwa, the cursed one, still roams its depths. Efuwa's isolation deepened as the seasons changed. Her bitterness, which once drove her ambition, now turned inward. She spent her days wandering aimlessly, consumed by her thoughts and regrets. Her dreams of power and recognition had evaporated like morning mist, leaving only the stark reality of her circumstances. The disease worsened, slowly eating away at her body, until she could scarcely recognize herself. But no one came to her aid, for they feared the curse that had befallen her. She lived out the remainder of her days in the forest, never to return to the kingdom. Occasionally, hunters or travelers would catch a glimpse of her from afar, a lone figure moving slowly through the undergrowth, her cloak dragging along the forest floor. They would tell of her eyes, still burning with a strange intensity despite her frail condition, and speak in hushed tones of the woman who had defied the gods. Efuwa's story became a warning, the tale of pride, ambition, and the consequences of defying divine will. She came to accept the outcome. Her bitterness softened over time. I remained in the court as a witness to the unfolding of history. I watched as Etuwa transformed the kingdom, bringing not only prosperity but a new way of thinking. Tradition was not forgotten, but it was adapted to serve a greater purpose, unity and the well-being of all. In the years that followed, the story of the outcast queen was passed down through generations, a tale of love, betrayal, and the strength to overcome. It became a legend, reminding us all that sometimes the least expected can become the greatest of leaders. And so, the tale of Etuwa, the queen chosen by the gods, lived on, a testament to the power of the human spirit and the beauty that lies not in form, but in action and heart.